In this video, I am diving into my very first culture shocks when I had just moved to Sweden, the ones that caught me completely off guard and made me almost pack my bags and go back home to Tanzania. Just a bit of a background. I officially moved to Sweden in April 2015. So if you do the math, it's been exactly 10 years now. I remember that day so clearly, April 1st of 2015. Part of me was thrilled because I was finally joining my husband after living apart for a whole year. So yes, I moved to Sweden for love. But another part of me was, of course, terrified. It was the first time in my life ever where I was stepping into the unknown, and I honestly had no idea what I was getting myself into. Now, I am usually the kind of person who tries to stay positive. So I thought, okay, Robi, all you need is a couple of warm jackets, maybe a trench coat to look uber cool, of course, then a bit of Swedish, or baking some kanelbullar, you know, the famous Swedish cinnamon rolls. Blend them from scratch and you'll be good to go. How wrong was I? What followed was a full-blown emotional roller coaster. The first few years in moving to Sweden were quite challenging. I almost wanted to give up, as I said earlier, and go back to Tanzania. The cultural shock was real. It was worse than I thought. And that's exactly what I'm sharing with you today. My hope is that by sharing my experiences, you will not only get a glimpse of what's really like to move to a new country, but also feel a little less alone if you're going through something similar. Because trust me, it's not just about the cold weather and learning the language, depending where you are. It's about identity, belonging, and learning how to thrive in a place that feels nothing like home. So without further ado, let's rewind the clock to 2015 and let's start with the very first and possibly the most shocking culture shocks for me. Let's call it the silent treatment. Back in Tanzania, where I come from, it's considered very rude not to say hi, for example, when you pass a group of people sitting outside or to your neighbor. But here in Sweden, sometimes your neighbor will respond when you say hi. Sometimes they will pretend that they have not seen you or even hear you. It's called personal space. These days, to be honest, I cannot be bothered anymore. I just let them greet me when they feel like, but I'm not the one to start greeting. I mean, what's the point? Maybe they need their personal space, so I will let them do it. And if you're watching this and you ever felt invisible, ignored, or completely confused by people's behavior, you're not alone. I've been there, and I promise it gets better. One thing that really surprised me here in Sweden was how kids' birthday parties worked. I remember the first time my son was invited to one after we moved. So I dropped him off, and the parent of the birthday child just said, okay, see you in 2 hours. I was like, okay. And while I was still adjusting to that, I noticed something even more unexpected. Some parents didn't even say hi to me or to each other. It was just a quick hello to the host, and then they would leave their child and leave. Then, like clockwork, 5 minutes before the party ended, every parent was back. They picked up their child and left. No small talk, no lingering, no interaction with other parents. The ones that actually would sit and talk are the ones they knew each other since daycare. I was so shocked. But back in Tanzania, a child's birthday party is almost like a mini community gathering. Parents often stick around, chat, help out, maybe even make a new friend or two. In fact, when I told my friends I was moving to Sweden and I was a bit worried that, I don't have any friends there, what am I gonna do? Many of them reassured me and said, don't worry, you have kids. You will make friends easily. Well, not quite, at least not here where I live. My kids were in daycare, but the only friend I made during those early years was another Tanzanian mom that had lived there for a very long time. And honestly, she was such a blessing. She introduced me to a warm, wonderful group of expats from all over the world that ended up becoming my social circle for years. And you know what? It wasn't until I started working that I finally began making Swedish friends. But it took time and a lot of patience. Which takes us to the next cultural shock. My first job here was a culture shock all on its own. It started with lunch at 11 a.m. Yep. You heard that right. 11:30 in the morning. And get this, my friend, also from Tanzania and now a long-time Swede, she's lived here more than 25 years, told me that at her workplace, lunch starts at 11 o'clock sharp. I mean, what? At 11. I am still digesting breakfast. Back home in Tanzania, lunch usually happens around 1 p.m. So naturally, when I started my first job here, I stuck to what I knew. I would wait until 1 p.m. to eat. How wrong was that move? Because then I realized I was eating all by myself. By 1 p.m., everyone was already back at their desks or deep into different team meetings. It didn't take super long to realize that if I wanted to connect with my colleagues and not to feel like the odd one out, I had to adjust. So I made a compromise. I stopped eating breakfast. That way, I would actually be hungry by 11:30. Then came Fika. This was a whole new concept for me. At first, I didn't get it. I would skip it thinking, let me finish this task quickly. But what I didn't realize back then was that Fika isn't just about coffee. It's where real connections are made. It's how you bond, build trust, and become part of the team. I missed that opportunity at my first job. And looking back, I wish someone had told me how important it was. But hey, we live and learn. That's part of the journey, right? Actually, I had so many work-related culture shocks that I ended up making a full video about it. And it turned out to be my most popular video ever. If you're curious, I will link it up here and in the description. By the way, right now, where I work, we usually go for lunch at 12 p.m., which I think is much better than 11:30. The next culture shock, let's call it eating habits. So forget lunch at 11:30 a.m. Most families in Sweden eat dinner at 4 p.m. Yes, you heard me right, 4 in the afternoon. But imagine if you ate lunch at 11:30, of course. I'm sorry, but this one culture shock I simply couldn't adjust to. Where I come from, in Tanzania, dinner is usually served at 8 p.m. If you are an early eater, then maybe 7 p.m. But 4, that's basically a late lunch where I'm from. And since this was something I could control in my own home, I stuck to my roots. So at our house, dinner is usually served around 7. Maybe if we are early, it will be 6:30, but not earlier than that. It's kind of funny though, especially during summer. We'll be sitting outside, having dinner or maybe grilling. And our Swedish neighbors, they are already done eating, just sitting around snacking and chatting. I remember looking over like, wait, chips right now? Did you just eat? Of course, in the early days. But then again, if you ate at 4 p.m., of course, by 7 p.m. it's probably snack o'clock. What also threw me off was this idea of structured meal times, like breakfast, fika, then lunch, then fika again, then dinner, and then after dinner, snacks before bed. There is a sort of rhythm here, and to be honest, I haven't adjusted fully to this new food culture, and I don't think I will. Next, let's talk about another area where Swedish culture really surprises me. Parenting and family structure, especially the way children are raised and treated. Where I come from, children are expected to show respect. not just to their parents, but to any adult. You don't dare talk back to your parent. You don't question instructions, and you don't certainly challenge a grown-up's decision unless you want a serious side eye and a possible "who raised you" moment, or "who is your mama?" Respect for elders is non-negotiable. It's how we show love, honor, and humility. So imagine my surprise when I saw a child here in Sweden saying, "No, I don't want to do that," to their parents. "Jag bestämma." Or something like, "Why should I listen to you?" And the parent would calmly respond with, "Okay, let's talk about it." I was shook. Even in schools, kids call their teachers by their first names. We used to call teachers Madame or Sir. And they're encouraged to express their feelings openly. Back home, your teacher's word is final. You wouldn't dream of disagreeing with them, especially not publicly. At first, I honestly thought it was a bit wild. But with time, I started to understand the thinking behind it. Swedish society values independence, mutual respect, even between adults and children, and believes that children will heard, grow up confident and emotionally intelligent. Still, I won't lie, it took some serious mental rewiring, because even today when my kids question me or want to negotiate bedtime, the Tanzanian in me goes like, "Excuse me?" Then I remember, well, I'm raising my kids in Sweden, so I will go like, "Okay, let's talk about it." It's a constant dance between the values I was raised with and the environment my kids are growing up in. And I'm learning to navigate both worlds. It's tough, but I'm getting there. And then there is the family structure at home. In Sweden, household rules are usually shared equally. You will see dads pushing strollers, cook meals, take paternity leave. It's quite normal. In fact, when I first saw men in Sweden taking months of work to stay home with their babies, I was genuinely amazed. Back home, that's almost unheard of. Parental leave is usually for mothers, and the rest of the village chips in. I must admit, I still get pleasantly surprised when I see a man pushing a pram all by themselves. So basically, here in Sweden, the idea is that no one is helping anyone. It's not something like, "My husband helps me with the kids." It's, "We raise the kids together, period." I like it. And everything is supposed to be 50-50. Cooking, cleaning, childcare, house admin, it's a shared responsibility. And society fully expects both parents to carry the load equally. I totally get the logic behind, but I have to admit, this 50-50 thing is still catching up with me. It's not my thing, really. In my home, we still can kind of stick to traditional gender roles. I do most of the cooking, laundry, and the organizing stuff because it's the stuff that I love doing, and my husband doesn't like to do that. And then my husband will cut the grass, change light bulbs, own the barbecue during summer, and fix whatever is broken. You know, the masculine stuff. Sometimes he cooks special meals, like he has his own recipes like lasagna, burger, and yes, he does clean, but me cutting grass, absolutely not. I just can't get myself to do that. So yeah, while I really admire the Swedish approach to equality, and I have definitely picked up a few habits, I also know that I'm still holding on to bits of the culture I was raised in. And honestly, that's okay too. Because Finding your way in a new country isn't about becoming someone else. It's about figuring out how to blend the best parts of both worlds and making it work for you. So if going 50-50 works for you, go for it, but that's not for me. Another shocking thing for me is the Swedish communication style. Back in Tanzania, we are used to saying things the way they are. If something is not working, you will hear about it. If someone is excited, you will feel it. They will be excited, they will be loud and everything. We talk with our hands, with our faces, with our energy, you know. But in Sweden, everything is understated. And then there is feedback, especially at work. In Sweden, feedback is often wrapped in cotton wool. You might hear, that's an interesting idea, which doesn't always mean it's interesting, you know. Sometimes it means, that's not gonna work, but I don't want to hurt your feelings. This can be super confusing when you're coming from a culture where people are more direct. I remember in my early jobs here, I would ask for feedback and I would get answers like, well, it's good. Maybe just think about it a little more. Think about what? Exactly. Can you just tell me? It's super annoying. I had to learn to read between the lines and listen to what's not being said just as much as what is. There's even a word, Lagom. It means not too much, not too little, just right. And it applies to everything. How much you share, even how you dress or decorate your home. It's all about balance, harmony, you know. Next, let's talk about the Swedish seasons. Now, if you grew up in Dar es Salaam, like I did, you know this. The sun rises at 6 a.m. The sun sets at 6 p.m. every single day. That's the rhythm I was used to. So when I arrived in Sweden in April, I was like, okay, this is all right. Spring vibes, you know, normal sunset times. But then summer hit and I was not ready. At 9 p.m. it would still be bright outside, like lunchtime bright. At 4 a.m. the sun would be already up. I couldn't sleep. My body was so confused. I was like, dinner time? My brain was like, what dinner? It's like 3 p.m. I had to run to IKEA to get blackout curtains to just survive. And trust me, those are a game changer. And just when I got used to eating my dinner on daylight, winter arrived. Suddenly, it was dark when I woke up, dark when I left work, and in between, still dark. Sometimes we went for days without seeing the sun. Suddenly, I would wake up feeling down with no good reason. I just wanted to sleep a whole day. To be honest, I still haven't gotten used to it, even after living here for 10 years. What helps is vitamin D's. You know, growing up in Tanzania, I used to take the sun for granted. Actually, I stayed away from the sun because it's really, warm. Right now, I respect it. I even understand why some ancient beliefs worship the sun. The sun is indeed everything when it comes to our well-being. But then, one of the strangest things that really surprises me is the days when it snows. So here in the south of Sweden, it doesn't happen that often, doesn't snow a lot. But when it does, the skies would be clear. The sun would shine so bright, it bounced off the snow like diamonds. And in those moments, it was like living in a winter wonderland. Absolutely magical. I have heard it's even more stunning up north, where the snow stays all winter and turns the entire landscape into a fairy tale. I've never been to the north of Sweden, but it's in my bucket list. I have to go to Kiruna one day, and see the northern lights. Last but not least. So I had just started settling in and made a few friendly connections at my local Facebook groups. These are the best for meeting people, by the way. So one of these blue days, I casually asked one of them that I thought we made a bit of connection. And I said, hey, do you want to grab a Fika tomorrow? She responded, I am fully booked for the next 2 months, but how about week 25? I have some free slots there. I was like, what? It's just Fika. It's supposed to be spontaneous, right? Nope. Sometimes I honestly wondered if people were just pretending to be fully booked. You know, like it's cooler to always seem busy and unavailable. To be honest, this was so hard for me to adjust to, because back in Tanzania, socializing is so effortlessly. You can even call someone the same day and ask them if they want to grab lunch or have a drink. We don't do a lot of coffee there. We go for drinks. It's too warm. And it's totally normal. Actually, we don't plan social time. We just live it. They just happen, you know. So yeah, in Sweden, socializing is something you schedule. It's an appointment, like going to the dentist. And for someone like me who was used to being spontaneous, when it comes to these social meetups, the Swedish way of planning can feel really lonely at times and rather boring. But you know what? I eventually learned how to make peace with all the things that shocked me when I first landed in Sweden. Looking back, I wouldn't trade this journey for anything. It's been tough, but it's made me stronger and more grateful for both cultures that shaped me. Of course, there were those moments where I laughed, and there were moments that I cried, and a whole lot of lessons that I had to learn the hard way. But here's the thing, I didn't just survive. I adapted, I grew, and I found my rhythm in this new land. And in part 2, I will share what it's like to live and work in Sweden. I will share the salaries, the cost of living, and whether it's worth it. This has been one of the most asked videos in the comments from the viewers. So make sure you subscribe if you haven't already, so you don't miss it out. Thank you so much for watching, and remember to like and leave me your thoughts. You know, I always love to hear from you. It usually makes my day, and I enjoy responding to your comments. Otherwise, I will see you in my next video, which is right there, or possibly there, I don't know.